Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
What's the creepiest encounter you've ever had with someone? There used to be a chick who'd hang around in a little field near where me and my mom live and watch the house every day. I'd look out of my window at night, and she'd be there smoking a cigarette just watching. She had an obsession with my mom and started dressing like her, and was seen walking past where my mom works as well as her partner's house. Harassed her online all the time too. She had the cops called on her a bunch of times and eventually stopped. I hope she's doing okay, poor thing.
Not really creepy, as I felt safe throughout the whole interaction, but weird. Studying at the local library with a friend. Go outside for a smoke break. Somewhat weird but non-threatening guy arrives riding a bicycle, parks it, and asks us for a cig. He looks like old Rust Cole, pick related, but with a hippie streak. Starts to talk about really interesting and somewhat X stuff. Very coherent, not schizo ramblings, just actually interesting stuff about many subjects. Conversation is all around pleasant. Starts bleeding from the nose, excuses himself profusely. He looks really sorry and mad at himself. Gets on the bike and leaves.
Haha, this happened a few weeks ago. It was weird, and I should share it with someone. There was a bunch of people out at the few restaurants and bars on this evening, and it seemed like no one noticed this, but us little Midwestern town, outside smoking with a friend. The guy comes around the corner with a police scanner blaring. Figured it was a cop. Man in plain clothes, no badge, and some gear like a flashlight and another radio. Runs fast in one direction in front of our garage and then back again. No other law enforcement in the area. He continues to the main intersection of town, pushing the cross button repeatedly. Runs across into the former Masonic temple across the street. Comes out 15 minutes later. Crosses the intersection again and runs back in front of my garage. I yell out, "Where you going?" He looks right at me, 2 feet from me, and ignores me. Goes back around the original corner he came from.
Be me and my best friend, 12 or 13 years old. Ride bikes all the time in our nice suburban town. Nice day, early spring, go for a bike ride and end up in a neighborhood a few miles away. Turn down a street into a slightly older subdivision and immediately hear people yelling at us and trying to call us over. Start to check it out, then we both look at each other at the same time with a bad feeling. Turn around and head back. A couple minutes later, a big loud truck chases us down. The driver looks like trash, a guy in his 20s, with a mop of red hair and a furious look of pure hatred. Can't remember for sure, but it almost seems like his eyes are pure black. Snarls at us and says he's going to kill us. Babudef. Take off fleeing for our lives, riding as fast as we can on our bikes. Taking shortcuts across the golf course where he can't follow us, doubling back through the maze of neighborhoods while trying to make our way home. Keep hearing his loud-ass truck here and there for the next hour as we hide and flee, so we know he's still driving around looking for us for a long time. Finally make it home, tell Dad who is pissed, and drives off looking for this asshole, never finds him. Over the next few weeks, I think I keep hearing that truck driving around. Even think I see it drive by my house a few times. Never saw him again. Still have no clue what the hell that was about.
Beamy, 6'5" heavy metal bruiser biker type. Lightly drunk, Saturday night 3 a.m. just left the club. Looking for a taxi home. Loitering at taxi rank. Small, clean-shaven, short-haired dude in expensive designer clothes loitering too. Smalltalk.jpg. A taxi appears. Which way are you going? West End. Me too, wanna share? It's hard to get a cab at that time of night. Both hop in. Taxi heads west. Random banter and lulls happen. I'm full of jokes when drunk. Ask smart-dressed guy what he does for a living. I'm a hitman, he says. I kill people for money. Cool, good work if you can get it, must be fun, I say. Banter and lulls continue. Suddenly hitman shouts, "Stop the taxi." WTF.BMP. Anon, I can't do it, I need to get out here. He pulls out a pistol with a silencer on it. I was going to kill you and the driver. But you're too nice a guy and I just can't do it. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. He bails out of the taxi and runs off. Bewildered.png. Driver is shaking, eyes like saucers. Hey man, are you okay? I reply, yeah, fine, no worries. I'm also fearless when drunk. Driver asks if I want to go to the police station. I say nah, not bothered. Driver says, screw it, he's going anyway. I get him to drop me off first. He doesn't charge me for the ride. Nothing too wild except for the fact I live in Scotland, where guns are very not an everyday thing, ever since Dunblane. I thought little of it until the next day when I was sober and realized the smart-dressed guy was serious.
I had a client who insisted on meeting after hours. It was weird because literally as soon as it got dark, he appeared outside suddenly together with his girlfriend. During the interaction, I felt as if he was probing my mind, and I literally had two streams of consciousness going. Never had to do this before or since. With one side of my mind, I was talking to him calmly, and with the other, fighting with this force that seemed to want to take over my mind. He seemed dissatisfied after a while, like he lost interest. The girlfriend seemed normal, but didn't really speak. It was as if I didn't give in, so his excuse to see me, supposedly using my professional services, fell away. I felt exhausted once they left. It was only upon reflection I realized during the entire interaction, he never once blinked. It must have been an hour or more. Absolute true story. I felt like he was one of these energy vampires or something.
With two friends, everyone high and drunk. It was 4 or 5 a.m. in summer, so the streets were empty. Friend 1 was driving and getting me and friend 2 to my house. Near my house, I see a strange guy trying to hitchhike. Friend 1 parks the car, and the strange guy starts approaching us. A horror movie-like scene ensues, but also very funny, where friend 1 can't remove his seatbelt, and I am left in the back of the car watching this creepy guy approach us as if it was nothing. Me and friend 2 finally get out of the car and close my house gate behind us. The weird guy is in front of us. Sorry to bother you, but where am I? He wasn't drunk or anything. Seemed like he was beaten down maybe, with his clothes full of leaves and dirt. Tell him the city name and nearest places. When he hears the city name, he repeats it in a way I will never forget, like if I told him we were on Mars. Thank you very much. Proceeds to walk away in the dead of night.
Was helping a friend move from New York, getting out of the Army, to Oregon, his home state. Skip to the tail end of the journey, we've just crossed the border into Oregon. Get to a town named Burns. Hop on Highway 20 to get to Bend. It's about 10 p.m. when we hit Burns, and it's 2 hours, if I recall correctly, to Bend. We're in a U-Haul with a trailer, his car, so we aren't really making any speed records. The thing about Highway 20 in Oregon is there's really only 2 roads that lead off it, so once you're on, you either finish what you started or turn around if you can. There's no signal at all. We get onto this highway, and maybe about 20 minutes past, Burns, a car appears behind us. Wasn't behind us before that we knew, just was there. High beams on, riding our ass the whole way. Now where I live, that's pretty typical of farmers and locals, but they will pass given enough time. This guy was behind us all the way to Riley. I was in the passenger seat with my shotgun. Didn't own a pistol at the time and was all I had. And I told my buddy when we get into Riley to do the see if he's following us bit, where we take a random series of turns. He was in fact following us. Ended up getting back onto the highway, there were patches of signal, and the guy was still riding our ass following us. Tried to call 911, but the signal kept dropping to nothing. He only followed for another 15 to 20 minutes past Riley, before he pulled off onto the highway and killed his headlights. We kept driving till we got the rest stop along the road where a bunch of people were.
Be me. A teenager but adult. I need to stay at a hotel. Choose the cheapest $35 room in a bad part of town because I'm a stupid teenager. Get there around 11 p.m. It's weird. Rundown. Half the lights in the hallway are flickering or out. Bring in the first bit of luggage and go back to my car. Coming back up to the room with the last bag of luggage. A tall, skinny guy with a broken foot in a boot and a single crutch gets in the elevator. My deep reptile brain says something's wrong with him. Decide he's just drunk and weird looking. He keeps trying to make conversation like we're old friends. My brain keeps sounding an alarm that something is wrong with him, even though he just looks like a normal guy with a broken foot. Get out on my floor. After 20 to 30 feet, I hear crutches. He also got out on this floor. Even though he pressed the button for a different floor when he got in the elevator, maybe he just pressed the wrong button and this really is his floor. He's crutching after me and trying to continue our conversation. I turn and see him, this lanky guy with a bizarre and inscrutable face, hobbling down the corridor behind me, half hidden by the broken and flickering lights. The image fills me with a deep, primal fear. Know down to my bones that if I don't get in my room fast enough, he will use the crutch to jam the door open and force his way in. Give up any pretense of politeness, stop talking and start running to my room. He picks up the crutch and starts running. I nearly drop the room key panicking, but manage to get in and slam the door shut with him within 10 feet of me. Flip the extra toggle lock thing closed. I'm basically sobbing and trembling and fall down against the door. Total silence outside. I call the front desk, but I just sound like a crazy person or a prank call and they hang up. I know the police will probably do the same, plus scaring me isn't a crime. Finally think to check the peephole. He's gone. Spend the night dry heaving and staring at the door anyway. Get out as soon as the sun is up.
Driving down a spooky, swampy county road with my wife around midnight. We love creeping each other out at night. The road is called the Bottoms because it's the lowest point in the area and often floods. Water is right up against the road. Drive around the corner and see 2 police vehicles, 1 cruiser and 1 big Suburban. 2 cops, 1 male, 1 female, standing outside the vehicles by the water staring at us as we drive by. They look at each other and scramble. I start going a little faster. Was already like 15 miles under the speed limit. Rather than keep going to where the road dead ends, I pull into a spot on the side of the road and turn around. As I start heading back the way we came, the cruiser comes around the corner, but I squeeze past it and hit the exact speed limit all the way past the spot where the Suburban cops still sat. I feel like they didn't want us to know what they were doing out there. The Suburban wasn't local and had the name of a town more than an hour from here. Also should mention there have been a lot of corpses found out there in recent years. One guy was found hanging from a tree like 40 feet off the road, over the water.
Friends and I frequently visit IHOP after bars and the clubs close and we're drunk. Meet a nice old guy who introduces himself as Jupiter. Says he got the name because he took too much acid one time, made it all the way to Jupiter and never fully returned. Whatever. Dude's cool as shit to talk to even when we aren't messed up. Has outrageous stories about conspiracy theories, New World Order, and reptilian kind of stuff. Always buys us whatever we want, even though we tell him it's okay. Find out, it's because the dude is absolutely loaded. He shows us an account balance receipt from an ATM. We took him to over $5 million. Turns out he did a lot of electrical work back in the day and had numerous patents for stuff the power companies still use to this day. Also, coming to realize he's got some kind of schizophrenia. He's distinctly different when he's off his meds. When on them, he can tell us about all of this crazy conspiracy stuff with a jovial attitude. When he's off them, he's furtive and anxious, always talking only to us in a hushed voice. We try to keep him on his meds as much as possible because he's becoming a good friend. One night, me and my best friend A are alone with him. We're the ones he says he feels he most comfortable with talking about all of this with, clearly off his meds, but tonight he's very solemn. Tells us we've passed his test and he wants to get us involved in his struggles against the New World Order and the reptilians and what have you. Slides 2 plane tickets across the table to a port town on the East Coast. Gives us detailed directions to a dock and a description of a contact of his who will take us on a submarine to Atlantis. We look at the tickets, they're one way only. Start getting creeped out. We take the tickets on the promise that he will take his meds when we see him tomorrow before we leave. See him the next day on his meds again. We give the tickets back to him. Seems perplexed, has never heard of the city or the contact of his. We had written his directions down and they match up perfectly with how to get from the airport in the city to the docks, so he must know something. He laughs it off, thanks us for the tickets back, and says he'll try to get a refund for them. Nothing else happened that really spooked me about him. He was always a really nice and friendly guy who just loved having people to talk to about the paranormal and conspiracies. But that one night, even my skeptical ass was worried by how convincing he sounded, that he might not actually be crazy about all this, or was super crazy and was sending us to some den of wackos to be killed or something. I don't know.
Walking with my best friend after having a few drinks at a local pub. Decide to get a kebab and take a shortcut past the canal, which cuts about 5 minutes off of our journey. About midnight, the walk to the kebab van was uneventful. Walking the same way back, we're both having a smoke and talking about going to watch the football the next day. Woman sat on a bench makes us jump. Covered all over, in a waterproof coat about 10 sizes too big for her. Plastic Asda bag next to her. She's also wearing sunglasses. Have you boys seen the swans? No, not at this time at night. Oh, okay. We walk off at a fast pace, again shooting the breeze. Hear rushed footsteps behind us. Both turn around and see her shape in the dark. We walk faster. She speeds up. We throw our cigarettes and walk even faster. She's still keeping up. We dive into the petrol station under the pretense of buying more cigarettes. As I go through the door, she's almost wearing my shoes. She's that close. I turn around and look at her. She looks at me and walks off up the road. Last time, I went along there to get a kebab again.
This was more WTF weird than scary weird. On holiday in a different state. Take my 7-year-old daughter to the bathroom near the food court in the center of the city. Standing near the basins, waiting. Weird dude with a long coat in Australian summer. Keeps moving as though he's coming in the bathroom, then backs out through the long corridor entryway. Daughter is done, washes her hands. I walk her out of there. She slips past the weirdo, with me right behind. Suddenly, the weirdo spreads out to block the corridor, fumbling with something in his hand. Has a bag slung across his chest, so it's awkward. Realize he's trying to fumble open a Swiss Army knife. WTF mode engaged. Cannot possibly be trying to mug me. Those tiny things don't even have a locking blade. Surely he'd cut his own hand. Automatically grab his wrists and shove him back. Say something like, "What the hell?" Weirdo immediately turns submissive, squeaks out that he just wants to get past. Turn him until we're facing opposite directions, and let him go. Weirdo scuttles into the bathroom. Saw him shortly afterward, lying on a bench right outside the center, and making no attempt to look inconspicuous. What I can't get my head around is that this freak couldn't possibly have been trying to mug me. But if he wasn't, what was he doing? Who walks into a shitter while opening up a pocket knife? And why the hell would he try to block my way like that?
Be me. Be working in an office with a 40-to-1 dumbass to someone with an IQ of 80+ ratio. A new guy gets moved to our area, weird-looking dude. Short guy, bow-legged, arched arms, big-ass head. The office has no official dress code, so everyone is casual. Always comes in a long-sleeve shirt and tie. Normally, that would only qualify as having a coworker that looks like Gary Coleman, but one of the guys asks Gary if he's single. I'm too focused on my career to focus on a relationship, was his answer. Most of the women in my office are taller than him. Displays terror in his eyes whenever he sees any woman taller than him. Like seriously, he always looked like he was gonna crap his pants. Customers start complaining about him yelling at people. Always seemed quiet at first, then went off on everyone who called him. Then it really got bad. One day I was going to the storage room. Gary was outside. Dude was tripping Pokeballs, talking to his invisible friend. Like, not kidding, it was as if he was talking to someone who wasn't there, couldn't understand anything. Slowly, noped out of there. The conversations became common even when the supervisor was present. Eventually, Gary got fired because of the huge amount of complaints from clients and coworkers. He'd simply insult people for no reason at all. Don't know what happened to him after that.
Hiking. Getting to the end of the day. Come to a wooden shelter the Boy Scouts make for hikers. There's one guy there. He looks like most long-distance hikers. Strike up a conversation with him. He's a bit odd, mostly talking about drinking booze and his time in the military. Notice there are 3 other backpacks leaning up in the back of the shelter. I asked him whose packs were those. He tells me some hikers left them there. I get suspicious and start to watch his movements more. It's getting dark out now. He starts talking about chopping people up with a machete in Vietnam. He says something like, "I've still got a machete." Gives me a sly smile. I'm taking steps back, starting to sweat. Just then, a large family out on a day trip shows up to the shelter. He starts acting really nervous. Some other hikers show up not long after. He picks up his pack and leaves. There's no way anyone would have just left those packs there.
Never met my biological dad. Heard he was some kind of biker or some shit. Did some snooping around trying to get any info I could. He was a fixer, and all leads say he's either hiding in Mexico or an unmarked grave. Was homeless for a bit, squeegeeing. Guy gets off bus and starts up conversation with me that we have in between lights. Middle-aged dude, non-threatening, nothing odd about him. Conversation goes towards bikers. Very casually mentioned my dad was involved, nothing remotely specific. Oh yeah, he's got a hit out on him. What? How would you even know? Don't ask questions you don't want answers to wink. Oh, here's my bus. Yep.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel, as more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.
Remember to check out the Odyssey page in the description for a second archive of the channel's videos.
There's also a Rumble archive as a backup.